Hi everyone, I'm Reena Suri and this is Thriving Changes. Today I'm in conversation with Avani Desai, Chief Executive Officer at Schellman, the largest niche cybersecurity assessment firm in the world that focuses on technology assessments. She shares with us how she develops herself as a leader and keeps herself relevant in a changing world. She also talks about integrating her personal and professional life. Avni considers her greatest accomplishment to be personal rather than professional. She is a proud mother of three wonderful children. I had such a lovely time having this conversation with her and learned so much about leadership. I hope you also enjoy this conversation. Hi, Avni. Welcome to Thriving Changes. I'm so grateful for your time, and I know how hectic your schedule is. So I'm really privileged, and it's such an honor to have you here.
Great to be here. Thanks, Rena, for inviting me.
Of course, yeah, I'm really looking forward to a conversation. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to go back a bit. When I tell people about my journey and where I came, my parents would always say that your journey is written in your history. So I'll start there and tell you how I got to where I am today. So my parents were both born in India in the 1940s, and both my maternal and paternal grandparents always believed, like most Indian parents, probably like you and me, that education was really the ticket to success. I think that made my mother's parents very progressive, especially in the 40s to 60s. She was the oldest girl in her family. And then you have to marry someone like her dad, and she did. So my dad was also very progressive. After him and my mom, they had two daughters. My older sisters were born in India. My dad had the foresight of saying, I want them to be successful. I want them to be autonomous. And we believe that for us to do that, we have to leave the only life that they know, the only language that they knew, the only religion they knew, the only people they knew, with that hope that America would give my sisters opportunities that India couldn't. And my mom even said she felt like she couldn't have the opportunities that she did there. But we hear that over and over. This is like the typical immigrant story. We hear it in the 40s, the 60s, we hear it today. So my mom and dad, they came to the States, and their college degrees unfortunately did not convert. So my dad mopped floors and my mom made belts. But they said they were so happy. And by then I was born, but they were so happy because they were in a country which really provided them an ability for their family to thrive. And that's really, if you think about like where my drive came from, when I take a look at my parents, they left everything with just the hopes that their daughter, I wasn't even born, would be able to succeed. That is really, when I think about who I am as a person, the drive, thinking about chances, that's really where my story. So by college time, my parents said it was the typical stereotype that I'm predestined to be a doctor and engineer. And it was true. I loved tinkering with things at a young age. And I became really intrigued with technology and the intersection of business. I focused on computer engineering, but then I really decided my love was information security. So from there, I started working for an accounting firm, and that's not how I predicted things. And I was very excited about that intersection, solving problems, data analysis, decision making. So I spent 10 years at the Big Four, and hands down, that was an amazing experience. And to be able to work at a firm like that, to have mentors and sponsors like that, education opportunities, the friends I made, you don't really get that. And that's exactly what I needed. But my life changed in 2012. I became a mother. And because of that, I needed a lot more flexibility. I needed a firm where I didn't have to choose between being a partner and a mother. And that's how I found Schellman. So our founder, Chris Schellman, reached out to me, told me to come over. I came over. I'm a computer engineer. I'm very technical, but I came over to work in business development and marketing. I didn't know much about that, but I did know the space, what clients wanted, brand, being a people first organization. And that's what I did. I kept on taking things off of Chris's plate. I focused on service delivery, new service lines, people and talent, finance. And in 2018, I became president of the company. I had to pass my CPA exam because we are a CPA organization. And 2021, we went through a private equity deal. And with that, Chris Shellman was able to retire 6 years ahead of plan, and I was able to take over as CEO. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind the last 20 or so years.
Sounds like that. But more power to you. It's such a remarkable journey. And you just mentioned something about the people first organization. So tell me a little bit more about that. How do you implement that in your organization? What's the culture like? What attracted you to it?
Yeah. To me, culture is very important and it holds a lot of significance. I sometimes say my job is being the garter of our culture, but I do think leaders, that's really what part of our job is. And I think culture is a lot more than just a set of rules or rituals or events. To me, it's the way we make people feel and shared beliefs and behaviors that really define our organization. And at Schellman, we understand that culture starts at the top, but what I think is really important is that it permeates through every level of leadership. So, yes, it starts with me and goes through my executive leadership team, directors, but managers and team leads. I think that's really what we need to think about is the permeation. And it's really reflected in the way we interact with our team members, our clients, our partners, our vendors. It has to be that entire ecosystem. I actually recognized just last year in 2023 that we needed a shift and we relooked at our corporate mission, our vision, our values, because I didn't think they fully aligned with who we were or who we wanted to aspire to be. I really wanted our values and to resonate with the reason people decide that they want to stay here. I want us to be a destination workplace, right? People want to come to work with us. And because of that, we went through a very long, rigorous process of saying what are our core values. And I think that's really where culture comes in. Do your core values align? And we looked at all of our survey results. We did task force, we did small groups, and we came out with 3 core values. People come first, transparency builds trust, and never stand still. And if you take a look at that, that's really what our culture is made out of. Like the importance of making sure that people come before profit, the well-being, the growth and development, making sure that we have a workplace where everyone feels valued and supported. Transparency is super important to me because I think that's how you have open and honest communication. And that's how you build trust, right? If people don't feel like you're being truthful to them and you're not giving them all the information that they need, you're not going to build that trust. And I think that's more than just with internally with our people. I think it's with our clients as well. Trust is the cornerstone of relationships. And then never stand still, which is probably my favorite. What is our commitment to always innovating? And what's our commitment to continuous improvement? And I can tell you, this is probably the hardest one for all of us, including me, that how do we embrace change? And like, how are we okay with that? Humans, we don't like change. That's just who we are. But especially in what we do, technology, we're constantly changing. So, how do we change and grow and learn? So, that to me, I felt like our culture took a huge revamp, right? Because we were able to really align with how we acted. And I think it does come from your core values.
I think it's so important for organizations to recognize that the culture is the backbone of the organization.
Yeah.
And Peter Drucker's, I think, quote is that culture eats
Yeah,
strategy.
I
So,
agree.
how did you implement when you finally identified the values and the shift that you wanted to make? How did you implement it within the organization?
Yeah, sure. Again, it's not a once and done thing, right? And we're still implementing it. Some of the things that we started doing in the foundation was every meeting we had internally, every proposal externally on our website, we had our core values up. Even from a recruiting perspective, I would put our core values to say, these are the core values. These are the type of people that we want to have work here. Even with clients, these are the type of clients that we want. We want clients to put people first too. We want clients to be transparent, especially we're an audit organization. We need people to be transparent with us. And we want clients who also want to not do things the same way that they do them all the time. We have to be agile and we have to be innovative. We have to think out of the box. So that was the first thing, was how do we make sure that everybody knows about it? I remember being on a call and it was one of our task forces. And I said, I would give anyone on this call $500 who could tell me what prior to these three core values, what our core values were. I'm talking about people who have been here for 15 plus years and nobody could tell me the core values, right? There's no reason to have core values if you can't recite them. And now you ask anybody at the organization from onboarding, because you hear our core values every day, they know them, right? And they live them and they breathe them and we make decisions around them. And when I talk about we were going to do this new strategic initiative, which we're going through a digital transformation. And one of the things that I say is this digital transformation really focuses on two of our core values. People come first. We're going to make it more efficient to do your audit. And the next is never standing still, because we want to make sure that we are innovative. So just that was one of the ways, is talking about it and making sure that there's exposure out there and building credibility around it. And then the second thing I think is a lot harder is how do we make sure that our leadership team is doing the same thing, that when they do make decisions, that they are living the core values of when they make the decisions. And I think that's what takes a longer time, right? That's everything else. You can put it on the website, you can put it in proposals. We could do that overnight, but truly living it. And we have it part of our promotion. If you take a look at our scorecard, our core values around the scorecard. And that's really why I think we're a great place to work, is because we're living our core values.
So modeling is, I think, the key. What kinds of tools and resources do you use to really make it the first thing in your organization?
Yeah, sure. So we have a monthly all hands call that I host, but we have several people in our leadership team, outside of our leadership team, who present on there. Yes, we do talk about our core values. We actually, our people team, they every all hands call have core value winners, right? So you can have the ability of saying this person has done X, Y, and Z because and it they embrace the core value of people come first. So that has been really good. So you have story, and we also put stories around when we officially launched our core values. We asked our people, tell us how you've embraced this, or tell us how someone else has, and tell us how people have modeled it. So that is with our learning and development team and also with our people team. And when you onboard, you get all of that information. But then we also do have training. So we have training from our manager and above level of how to live our core values. As I mentioned, our scorecards have changed. So our scorecards are both quantitative and qualitative. And our qualitative scorecards are focused around our three core values. And this is even for me, my scorecard is talking about these three core values, which I think is really important, right? Things like retention, making sure that our DE&I numbers are good, making sure that we embrace diversity. That's all people come first. But then also, if you take a look at never stand still, it's making sure that we are upgrading our technology, making sure that we're providing the best technology stack for our people. So all of the things, but all of our strategic initiatives can be surrounded by these three core values. So all the way from me down to our new hires, we'll see this in their scorecard. And then I think you're really living it. We don't do any type of quarterly training or anything like that, but our performance managers know the importance of these three and can have conversations if someone is not exhibiting it or if they are exhibiting
Yeah.
it.
It's always good to have these conversations, and a refresher is always welcome, especially now in the changing work environment. The biggest conversation during COVID was how culture is being lost within organizations, especially with remote work. What are some changes that you've brought into post-COVID, especially post-COVID, how to keep employees engaged and keep their motivation up and make sure that everybody's on the same platform?
Sure. So I think we've been a little bit different, right? We were remote first pre-COVID. We were always a remote organization. A lot of the hurdles that organizations had about shutting their offices and going to the cloud, we really didn't have that. But what we did have was everyone would work Monday through Thursday at a client site. And so that didn't happen. So the loneliness factor definitely came in. We have two offices right now. We have an office in Tampa, Florida, which is our headquarters. And we have an office in Columbus, Ohio, which is actually our largest office because that's where we do our emerging talent program. So that's our new hires coming from college. Tampa office is maybe even today 20% capacity. So one of the things that we did do was when we did go back into post-COVID, we did want our new hires. We consolidated and centralized all of our new hires who come from college in Columbus, Ohio, and they are there Monday through Thursday. They're working side by side with their team members who are coming in, and that's everyone, senior associates all the way up to partners at the firm, because I'm a big believer in someone like you and me. We've learned the things that we need to learn. And so sitting at home, going through things, and I have the confidence to ask if I need help. But sometimes out of college, you may not know that. There's a cerebralness to being able to sit next to somebody and ask a question or listen in on how they're talking to a client or how they're talking to a peer, how they're dealing with a difficult situation, right? We've done that. I've had 20 years to be able to sit side by side and learn from those that are older than me or with more experience than me. And so I wanted to make sure that people didn't lose that. So that's why we centralized all of our college new hires for 1 year. So we have an entire program. It's 1 year. You move to Columbus, you're done with the year, you can move back to where you came from, or you can stay in Columbus and work remotely or work out of the office. And that has been great. Otherwise, we try very hard. I think there's a difference between being side by side with someone. That's not connection. I tell my kids all the time, I want to spend time with you, but you can't be on your cell phone and I can't be on my cell phone, right? If we're both on our cell phone having dinner together, we're very close to each other, but that's not connection, right? I think connection is truly where we're having conversations, we're learning about each other, and we're excited to be there. And I think that's really important. Sometimes it's going to be less quantity, higher quality. So we do get together on an annual basis. We got together in Miami 2 years ago. We got together just last year in Mexico. The entire firm comes. You get to bring a plus one. This year we're doing regional trips. So we had almost 1,000 people last year. And so that gets a bit overwhelming. This year we're doing 11 regional trips. So there's smaller groups and we do meetups. We do a day of giving. So we're trying as we can because we are distributed. We're all over. We have someone in Alaska. We have people in South Florida, right? Two farthest places that you can think of. We do want to get people together. We do online events called Unwind After the Grind, where someone comes on who works for the firm and teaches something. Me and my mom were able to teach chicken tikka masala last year. And so just ways to kind of get people together, even if it's smaller groups. But it's hard. I definitely miss being at a client site, sitting next to somebody and sharing stories with them. But we're doing the best that we can. But again, I think it was less difficult for us because we were always a remote first company. So, we were working from home if we weren't at a client site. Yeah.
Many employees don't want to come back full time, and most of them are still working hybrid. You're reflecting that it is possible to have a remote work, that it can be done. Give people the opportunity to work the way that works best for them. They will be also more encouraged, I think, motivated to give best to the company as well. But if
Yeah.
we don't hear our people, then that's a problem.
Yeah, you got to trust them, right? You have to trust them. You have to give them the resources. And that's why I think for our emerging talent program, we're giving them the resources they need to be autonomous. And it could take a year. It takes a year to be able to go through that. But once we've given them the resources and we've taught them how to ask questions, how to be confident, how to raise their hand, how to identify red flags, then you have to trust them. I don't think location is going to fix anything. I actually think that we have increased productivity, less people driving to work. And for someone like me,
You have, yeah.
yeah, I feel like I'm a better mother. Like I can actually drop my kids off to school in the morning, and that makes me a better worker. When I feel like I don't have to choose between doing one thing versus another and I can balance both of those things, I think it's really important. And I can tell you there's like COVID had some terrible things that unfortunately that we had to deal with from a health
Yeah.
perspective. But one of the silver linings was we kept women in management and above positions at the firm. Usually they would leave. They would leave because they would have to travel. They were working 80, 90 hours a week. They couldn't be both a mother or even a father and a worker. And they would leave. Yeah. I didn't have one person I remember as a manager who was also a mother. The last 3 years, I had a baby. I had, like, as a CEO, I was able to have a third child. We had a partner, we had a director, and people stayed. And I think that's one of the positives that none of us could have thought about that would come out of the pandemic is because you're trusting people and letting them work the way that they want to work. And it's not always the way that we've done it in the past, but that's okay. That's okay.
That's okay. Yeah, that's what's important. That as long as they're delivering what they're supposed to, then how they work is it's irrelevant. it's a win for all, I
I
thought.
agree. I agree.
How do you work on your leadership skills?
Yeah. I think everyone, right? You need to constantly learn. I think continuous learning is very important. And I think improving leadership skills and maintaining relevance, especially in a dynamic business environment. And then for me, technology has always been a top priority. So I think there's a couple of things for me. Like I found empathy is really for me the cornerstone of effective leadership. And maybe that's so different than what you think of leader. But to me, I'm in a professional services firm. We are a people business. We are not making widgets, right? And so for me, connecting with Schellman team members on a human level and understanding their challenges and genuinely caring about their well being is really important to me. A good example that comes to mind is during team meetings, I openly share my experience as being a mother and a CEO, emphasizing that balancing a role like this is not always straightforward. I've even discussed the significance of asking for help. I even talked about my struggles with postpartum baby blues after giving birth. And I think vulnerability for me has really led to I've seen this notable shift in the team dynamics. People feel that I'm more approachable and they express their gratitude. They appreciate that they're not alone in the challenges and it's okay to be perfectly acceptable to seek support, right? So I really think the power of empathy, and this is something that I've learned through leadership skills, is helping foster trust and camaraderie. The second I talked about is vulnerability. Again, probably not a typical leadership trait that you would see, but leaders who are willing to show vulnerability, it fosters authenticity and encourages open communication. And if you can't be authentic, which means sometimes I have to openly admit I doubt something or I fear something or I acknowledge that I don't have all the answers all the time. And when you do that, the surprising thing that you see is team members step up. Like I'm a CEO, but doesn't mean I have all the answers, right? And I don't want to have all the answers. If we really want an innovative company, we need diversity when it comes to thought process. And so when you are vulnerable and you say, hey, I don't know the answer to that, or you heard my best idea, so come with more, I think you get more collaboration, you get more innovation, and I think it's the catalyst for real teamwork and problem solving. And the last, and I tell people this all the time, I mentioned earlier, people don't like change, but I think agility is really the most pivotal trait that I have to have in my leadership journey. Like we are in a constant state of flux and technology is evolving at even a faster pace. I say often technology is outpacing human beings, right? And the ability to adapt quickly is so crucial. And I've seen this more than ever, probably in the last 2 to 3 years when I took over as CEO. And most of us want to resist change or like we want to cling to the status quo. Like I've heard so many times in my career, don't fix something that's not broken. But yes, fix something that's not broken because maybe it's not the most efficient way. Maybe it's causing a lot of burden on people. Like you have to always look at things to see, do we want to adapt? Do we want to reevaluate? Do we want to navigate new services or new landscapes? And once you can be flexible and once you're willing to pivot, then you thrive in the face of change. And to me, if you can't change, you're going to become obsolete. Someone said this, and I can't think who, but it says if you're not changing, you're dying, right? You have to seize the opportunities. And so all those things for me have been like leadership traits that I wasn't born with. Like I didn't come out when I made manager at a big four, when I took this, like I didn't have these all in my toolkit. And I think, again, one of the things that I did have, though, and I think this comes from my parents, was the importance of continuous learning. And I think because of that one innate trait that I had, I then realized that I seek feedback and I want to be in a state of constant improvement. And I'm committed to evolving my leadership skills. And I think that's the mentality that you have. But I think all of this can be learned, right? I don't think any of this has to be innate. It all can be learned as long as you're willing to see the importance of it.
You have stated so many principles. They're such great leadership traits. I think and there's never a limit. We can always get better.
Oh yeah, and I agree with you. This isn't new. Like you look back at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? You
Yes,
take a look. I think I learned this probably in high school, but if you look at it, psychological safety, physical safety,
physical
love and
safety.
belonging, esteem and self-actualization. And those are relationships. But again, this is how we should treat people, right? People need psychological safety. They need to feel like they can bring their authentic self to work, right? They have physical safety. They want to belong. They want to have impact. They want to be part of a community, right? That's why we have ERG groups where if you're parents, you can join one. If you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, you can join that. And then esteem, right? I know you didn't ask me this question, but I always say that feedback is such a gift. Constructive feedback shouldn't be a blow to your self-esteem. It's the kind thing to do, helping someone get to that next level, really increasing their, self-esteem. And then you get to self-actualization. I don't know if I can help with self-actualization as a CEO of a company, but we have an opportunity to make sure that people have their hierarchy of needs met at their organization.
Yes, yeah, true. And now so many people are talking about that vulnerability. Like Brené Brown has just done that whole
Oh,
research on. That's her thing. That's what she talks about,
yeah,
whether at work and at home and in relationships.
that's right.
So you talked about the organizational shift that you guys made with your values and mission strategy and everything. Has it ever been that you've done some kind of shift in your personal life, some challenge that you've overcome?
Yeah, I think every day. I've made mistakes. And I think instead of saying making mistakes or failing, I always say that I like to think about failing forward. And I think that's really important to embrace a mentality of failure. And I know that's also probably something I tell my kids this all the time. Failure shouldn't be two steps back because every time you fail, right, you do something differently. You learn something differently
You
and
learn.
you learn, right? And
It's
I
an
think
opportunity for growth. It's
correct. Yeah. And we don't think of that often. And I wish we did. And I think that's where authenticity comes in. I think authenticity fosters a culture where
yeah,
failure is really accepted as part of growth. And so I say failing fast. I've talked about failing fast a lot. And I read a book last year and I learned about failing fast and forward. And so acknowledging that failure also isn't negative. I can tell you recently, just this week, I had to backtrack on a significant strategic technology decision and admitting that I made a mistake to the entire firm and that I acknowledged that was a decision that I made. And I was able to change course quickly. And this openness allowed for quick course correction and it demonstrated the importance of learning from failures. But then you look at other fields, right? You look at science and you look at medicine. And in science and medicine, when you have a hypothesis, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get everything that's wrong so you can find the next best drug. So, like, failure is part of the process. And why don't we think like that? And I think that is really important. You have to figure out what's wrong before you figure out what's right. And yeah, my personal life, the same thing. I've mentioned it. I'm a mother of three
yeah.
kids. And being a parent, I think, is also you're learning every day. So I do have three wonderful kids. I have a 12-year-old son named Sahil, a 10-year-old daughter named Serena, and a lively 2-year-old named Haston. And that's what I'm most proud about. If you took a look at my professional life and my personal life, being a mom is what I'm most proud about. But yeah, it's very challenging, but it's also been the most satisfying and the amazing experience for me. Do I think that I'm good at it? I've actually shifted away from the term work life balance because, like, when I think of work life balance, I think of the image of me like balancing on one foot and I'm juggling plates, and you know how that ends. And so I like to think about it work life integration. Like, I make a conscious effort, and I learned this. I learned this 12 years ago when I was traveling every week. And I remember my son, he was 2 years old and he fell and he started crying and he went to my mom before he went to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened here? I've always wanted to be a mom. So now I make a conscious effort to integrate both aspects of my life. During the summer, I travel with my kids. Like, we will go visit clients together. I'll go meet my employees together and I go places where my mom can come or my mother-in-law can come. And I just came back from an annual meeting of CEOs with CPA firms this past weekend. And I took my oldest son, and he was the star of the event. He was engaging in conversations about cars, and he wants to be a coder. And I like bringing my two worlds together. And it allows me to be a present mother while running a company effectively. And I think that's really important. And it took me a very long time. And sometimes I think I've missed a lot in my oldest two's lives because I felt like I had to be all work, right? I felt like I had a demanding career. and I had to make sure that I only did that. And then you realize with my third, he's 2 years old, and I was like, I'm not going to make those decisions. I think you can be a great mother, a great parent, and you can also be a great employee. And you have to integrate it, and you have to find the right way to do that. And I'm lucky I'm at a firm that I do that. And I'm also lucky that I am confident enough to take him to a happy hour and introduce him and be okay with it. And it's hard though. It is very hard.
It is. Thank you for this word. My desire is to break one of these myths that individuals can be in these two separate compartments, work life and personal life. It's never really like that. The same person shows up at work and at home. We carry the same mindset, we carry the same characteristics, our traits, and we carry the same emotions to both places. And so separating those two is a very difficult, it's not really a possibility. And people are just, I think, faking it, just
Yeah.
hiding it and masking it.
Yeah. And look, I've done that. I remember early in my career, like I really tried to emulate the male role models that I saw because that's all I had. I had just had really great male role models. And I remember that I was trying to pick up interests like golf and sports. And I even started paying for the newspaper for an entire year so I could read the sports headlines, right, before I went to work. I quickly realized that these pursuits were really not aligned with my authentic self, right? And it became really evident, though, that authenticity should be the core of leadership. And I couldn't encourage others to bring their own authentic self if I wasn't doing the same. And like, I remember it was like, I must have been like 4 or 5 years into my career, and I was at an event and I tried to smoke a cigar and drink bourbon to fit in with this group of men who were their partners, maybe. And I
Yeah.
felt terrible, both physically and emotionally, the next day. And then I realized, gosh, I have to stay true to myself than rather trying to conform to stereotypes. And I think that happens with women a lot. Like we feel like we have to be amazing mothers and then feel like we have to work 100 hours a week and work harder and faster and better and not make mistakes. And then also make sure we can cook a meal and stuff. But look, from that point on, and again, I made mistakes and I realized like I have to embrace who I am. And it's the unique qualities that I'm going to bring to the table. And I also learned that there's so many different ways to build connections and foster relationships that don't involve the traditional gender expectation. So, look, great. People want to go on golf outings for network, right? I actually just recently took a group of clients and prospects to Disney World, right? To me, that's what I do. And I live in Orlando and that's what my kids like. So, like that authenticity, if I could have learned anything earlier in my career, I would have, and I will tell anyone this, you have to be authentic. That is such a powerful leadership tool. When you're true to yourself, people see it and they see the sincerity. Like people knew I didn't know what was going on with the NFL game. Like people knew I wasn't smoking the cigar. And you have to be able to like enjoy experiences. And I think that all leads to leadership. Look, do I want to learn how to play golf? Yes, I do because my kids love it. But you have to be authentic to yourself. And I think that's so important. And I wish that I learned that earlier in my career.
Good to know and how you implement it with yourself and with the people around you and people that you interact with. Spouses make such a big difference when it comes to this because, as you said, it's not really an easy path to navigate. There are challenges. It can be different for different families, but I always remember this. One was Indra Nui once. I heard her interview where she said that she was finding it difficult to be present for her daughter all the time. And that's when her husband stepped up that, look, this is us. We're going to do this together. And the similar sentiments were reflected to me one of Brene Brown's talks where she talks about it's never 50-50. It's never a 50-50 on every day. There are times when she's really tired and her husband has to do some more, and the other times it could be the husband who's really tired. I know you've mentioned we've had that conversation before in our when we first connected. Could you share how it is at home with you and your husband and tell us a little bit about him, what he does, and
Yeah.
how do you guys balance your calendars and sharing of responsibilities and
Yeah. Absolutely. I've been very fortunate that I have a very highly supportive husband. So he is a high risk obstetrician and we've supported each other's careers through the various phases of life. So When I met my husband, he was in residency, and it's a very rigorous, time consuming process to become a specialized physician. So after medical school, you go to residency. After residency, he went through a fellowship. And when he was doing residency and fellowship, the 8 to 10 years through that, I was there to support him through his demanding. He was doing 100+ hour work weeks. And then the same thing, I had to prepare for my CPA exam while raising two toddlers, and he stepped up to take care of the kids. And evenings and weekends, sometimes I would be gone the whole time studying. But I think that's really what a true partnership is. Whenever you have a spouse and the foundation is built on mutual support and understanding. So, look, we both share the drive to be successful in our respective careers. And we also recognize the importance of giving and taking. So, I remember I mentioned to you early on that we went through a private equity deal in 2021. And so, even before going through the private equity deal, even before discussing it with our CEO at the time and founder, I went to my husband, Neeraj, and I asked, is this something we should go do? Because it's not just an Avani thing, right? I was really concerned about the demands of private equity life. And I was concerned about what this means and like the stress. And his response was enthusiastic affirmation, right? He said it was a once in a lifetime opportunity, and he assured me that one, he's not going to stand in the way of me seizing it, but two, he was going to make sure that he was there and to support it. And one thing that we've learned together is the ebb and flow of responsibility. So you mentioned there are days in my marriage when I can give 100%. And then there's other days when I'm working and I'm traveling. And I head to Europe next week where I'm probably going to be able to give 0% or 5%. And it's a dance of balancing priorities. So my husband steps in often when I am traveling. He handles everything from nighttime feedings with our 2 year old to getting kids ready for school and managing their activities. And I think that is the true testament of a real partnership, right? Support and flexibilities. But then on weekends, when I'm back home, I am fully present. He wants to go get a massage or he wants to go to Costco and make up for lost time during the week. He gets to do
Yeah.
that. And I want to be the one who are taking care of the kids and their activities. And I actually enjoy planning special outings and helping with homework. And that makes sure that I'm active and I'm engaged despite the demanding professional commitments that I had earlier. We also have figured out what we naturally gravitate to. Like, I have a lot of joy in planning and organizing events like birthday parties and making sure the kids are prepared for school and making Valentine's Day cards. And then my husband, on the other hand, he really thrives on things like cleaning the garage and handling car related duties. And I have not filled up gas in my gas tank for years. And so I've never really viewed our terms as a 50-50 balance or like any type of percentage split. And you said that, right? Instead, I see it as a partnership built on trust and mutual support.
Yeah.
Some days it's more, some days it's less. But we just have to make sure that we're there for each other and then recognizing each other's contributions. And sometimes it's going to be 80% for him, and sometimes it's going to be 20%. But ultimately, it's the teamwork, the understanding, like the love.
Exactly.
Yeah, the love that defines a relationship is how we're going to have to navigate all the demands. And I know you asked me, like, our calendars are a puzzle. We use Outlook very effectively, and our entire life is scheduled there, from like doctor's appointments, my travel plans, his call rotations. It's all there. I even got my kids on Outlook. We balance it. It's like a Tetris puzzle sometimes.
I know that apart from your work and your home family life, and you are also very passionate about some causes and your philanthropy work. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I mentioned to you, my husband is a high risk obstetrician. He only sees mothers and babies all the time. And that was one of the passions that I think brought us together. I'm a strong believer in, if you can change the life of a woman, you can change the next several generations. And we are very passionate about philanthropy, especially philanthropy around women and children, but also passionate about strategic philanthropy. So, about a decade ago, I became part of a group called 100 Women Strong, and we are a group of venture philanthropists, and it's a giving circle. So we come together, we pool our money together. And that really has shaped my understanding, or reshaped my understanding, of regular philanthropy and strategic philanthropy. So CEO Mark Brewer is his name, of the Central Florida Foundation, where 100 Women Strong sits. And he told a story, and I will always remember the story. And to me, I don't know, a light bulb went out. And he said, picture a village where villagers are frantically rushing to the bottom of a river because babies are floating downstream. and they're determined to rescue them. And so conventional philanthropy would say everyone in the village focus on catching these babies that come down river, right? Which is very crucial short term. But strategic philanthropy takes a deeper perspective. It says, let's go upstream to investigate why these babies are ending up in the river in the first place and address the root problem. That's what strategic philanthropy is finding the source problem, addressing that. So it demands more dedication, resources, time to tackle such a big issue. But to me, that aligns with my values because I feel like I can make a profound impact by addressing specific community problems at their core. And it lets me do things that I feel like I'm good at, right? Delving into data, having an analytical mindset, having collaborative problem solving. But look, conventional philanthropy is needed. You still have to stock the food pantry, right? You still have to have a clothing drive, but those are for immediate symptoms and we have to solve those. Strategic philanthropy is about discovering and resolving like that fundamental issue to have a brighter future. And once he told me that story, and it just resonated with me of, oh yeah, I want to solve all of those source problems. People don't have to continue to go downstream. And that's really changed mine and my family's kind of giving process when it comes to philanthropy.
I think everybody has their different niche points where if this is something that you're good at, it's really getting down into the root cause of it.
Yep.
You do talk a lot about women in technology.
Mhm.
And so could you share some thoughts on that? And obviously, we don't see very many women in technology.
Look,
Share a little.
I think one, we definitely need more women in technology, and I'm excited about the future of young women in tech. And I'm going to specifically say young women because here's the deal: like, we really need to reach out to women much earlier than college. Like, I was exposed to technology once I started college, right? Like, I decided I wanted to be a computer engineer. But we got to be well before that, even before high school. Like, I'm talking about elementary school, right? When you can expose children to tech, they realize it's not just cool, it's meaningful. Like, I remember when I talked to my daughter's third grade class and I talked about video games and Roblox and Minecraft and like all the cool things that they do. It really made a difference in their world. And as a mom, I've seen it. Like, when I can expose kids to tech at a young age, they get excited. And look, my kids, I'm pretty sure they're going to go into tech, but they've had a chance to dive into it. They've been exposed to it. And I want to make sure young girls have the same opportunities to explore and get inspired. And I think the trick is to kickstart conversations and do it early, create more ways for young women to connect with tech. And I remember a parent asking me, they're like, oh, should I let my daughter play video games? I was like, yes, let her play video games. Like, they build the skills and confidence and the passion that they need for the tech industry. And we got to just open the doors for them. We got to encourage them. And I want that next generation of tech savvy girls. And I think there's such a great opportunity. But we just have to, as parents and as mentors and as aunts and uncles and friends and neighbors, I think we have to just focus on getting more girls excited about it.
Anything new that you're planning for yourself? Any challenge that you plan to take up in the near future? I read on your profile that you're an avid runner and you plan to do the marathon.
Yes, I hope so. I definitely was an avid runner after having the last baby. I put that on hold. Hopefully, I'll change, but I'm really focused on our journey here at Schellman. I feel like we're just getting started. There's so much to do. My big goal is to really lead our team in disrupting compliance and making us unique. So, near future, I'm all in on this, but I'm also trying to potty train my 2.5-year-old, and that's not going well. So,
Well, yeah, well, I'm sure it'll happen. They learn when they have to learn.
right. That's right.
So, how do you look back at it all, your journey so far?
Yeah, I'm incredibly lucky and I'm humbled. There have been opportunities that have come my way, and I have support and help from people all around me. It's a blessing. I know some people say that we create our own luck, but I'm really grateful for the blessings that have shaped my journey, the mentors I've had, the sponsors I've had. And I think that's really important. And yeah, I'm humbled and I feel blessed.
Is there anything that you would have done differently?
There's definitely moments where I can acknowledge that I've made choices like that may seem like mistakes. And we've talked about it, but like, if I had to hop into a time machine and go back, would I consider changing anything? Yeah, probably. But I think the really interesting thing about life is that we make unexpected detours. And at that time, they seem like wrong turns, and like we stumble, and maybe we tell ourselves maybe this isn't where we were supposed to be. But I think in the heat of the moment, even last week, I tell myself, gosh, I wish I could rewrite my history and what ifs. But the more mature I get and the more time, and I feel like we are given a gift of perspective. And I understand that these so-called mistakes, they really played a role in who I am today, right? They're the marks on my journey, the lessons that are etched into my experience, the scars that make me tougher. And so again, I think failure isn't a step back, right? It's that significant leap forward. And I think it's the trial and tribulations that have given me wisdom, resilience, the strength to get through obstacles. So looking back, I don't think I would alter a thing. I think every decision, turn, twist, it might have been right or it might have been wrong, but I think it contributed to where I am today. That butterfly effect. I talk about the butterfly effect, right? All the time. Something bad, I could have thought it was bad and it was terrible, but did it lead me to do X, Y, and Z? So no, I'm going to keep my unique journey the way it is.
Wonderful. What would you say to some young, passionate women who want to have it all? A good family life, a
Yeah.
successful marriage, and a successful professional life.
I would say instead of aiming to have it all, try to strive to make yourself happy. Like the concept of having it all, one, I think it's misleading. And I also think it's super overwhelming. Like it implies every day you have to have that perfect balance between work and life, and your hair has to be done. You have to have the right makeup. Every decision has to be perfectly aligned. And gosh, I can tell you, if you take a look behind the curtain, like my life is beautifully messy and it's very unpredictable. And I probably wouldn't have said beautiful last week, but you look back and I think messy and unpredictable. So, look, I'm going to be the first to admit that I don't have it all. And I've had my fair shares of days where I feel like a less than perfect mom, or I've made decisions at work that don't pan out. But if I set each day with the goal that I have to have it all, I'm going to run myself ragged and I'm going to be disappointed, and it's going to cause mental health issues. And I'm not going to be a good mother and I'm not going to be a good leader. To me, I think having it all is really subjective. And so it could appear that someone is having it all, but it's not going to have the same meaning to another. So I think your journeys, professional and personal, needs to be deeply personal. It needs to be a personal journey. So don't compare yourself to others and don't try to match their version of success or fulfillment. Like, I think we all have to take time out to understand what genuinely makes us happy. Like, really, what satisfies our soul, and like what is our own value and aspirations. And I think once you figure that out, like you can say that you have it all.
Wise words and that way to go, because that journey is different for everybody. Those
Correct.
aspirations are
Yeah.
different. Avni, I thank you so much for this insightful conversation. I really enjoyed it, and great learning experience, on how you navigate through certain things in your life. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Rena. I appreciate the opportunity, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
If you found the content valuable, please like, share, and subscribe, and spread the word. I feel the best compliment is being referred. That one action of yours can help us reach more people and fulfill the mission of thriving changes. Thank you for considering.